Live. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. So remember to share, and share once again because it is Monday night and it is time to have that conversation with the doctors. As always, we're going to go around and we're going to introduce our esteemed panel that is here on this evening, starting with the man who says that I threaten him to be here on Mondays, but he's here on time all the time. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller?
Well, I want to say good evening to everybody and welcome aboard. We hope that tonight will be a conversation that you'll be informed by. And myself, I'm a retired internist. I practiced about 40 years in Chicago. I retired in 2019. Though I don't practice clinical medicine, I am still interested in healing our community and making certain that some of those things that prevent us from being well and those things that cause us to our health to fail, that we can do what we try to do something to make those things become less of an issue and to prevent them from doing the damage that they've been doing over time. So I'm here tonight to do what I can and to also to learn in the process. So here I am, and let's go.
All right, I want to say hey to Alderman Pat Dow that's here with us on this evening. Hey, Pat, thanks for joining. I want to say hi to Dr. Lockhart. Elizabeth Lockhart is here with us, and we want to say hey to Dr. Lockhart for being here with us. I want to say hey to Connie Taylor. Connie Taylor says, good evening, everyone. Linda Johnson is here, and Linda says, good evening to everyone just as well. I also want to say hello to the guys that are over in the garage on Van Buren. We know that you guys are watching. Want to say hey to you guys. Want to also say hello to everyone at the Core Center who is helping. They are working, but they are also watching. Want to say hey to all of you. Want to say hey to Bishop Shirley Coleman, who is here. She says, hello, Danny, and hello to everyone that is here. So thank you so much, Bishop, for being here with us. Well, to the urologist of the stars who hates accolades, but I got a question. Is there a doctor in the house? That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason. Dr. Mason?
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much, and I'm grateful to be here, and actually grateful to still be on the air doing Doctor in the House. It's been over 30 years now, but I look forward to Couch Conversations on Monday because it's an opportunity for us to have a great conversation directly with people with whom we should be having these conversations. And I thank you and the congressman and all the responsible for making certain that this goes off. So a I'm hopeful and prayerful that we will be able to say something to you all tonight that will make your days better.
Thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Scott Peterson, who is here. Mr. Peterson is here with us. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, for stopping by. To President Carrie Steele. Hey, Carrie, thanks for dropping in and saying hey. I want to say hey to my good friend and brother, and also the congressman's and Joe's frat brother, our very own LG Sims, who is here. LG says he wanted to be at the table. So, hey, LG, and thank you, Senator LG Sims, for being here with us on this evening just as well. I want to say hey to Yolanda Williams, who is here. Hey, Yolanda. Yolanda says, good evening to all. And Sharon Grant is here. Hey, Sharon, we love you so. Sharon is here, and Sharon says, good evening just as well. Well, to my colleague who tends to leave me and have fun in the sun. But guess what? It's about 82 degrees here, Doug. That's our very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Hey, Doug.
Well, I tell you, I got it wrong. It rained all week. This is the first morning I've been able to walk out in the sun, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm a retired physician like Dr. Miller. I spent 30 years in the western suburbs, and after retiring, I joined the representative in his office in Washington, D.C. And I know learned an awful lot about public health and public policy. It's a real privilege and an honor to be here with the other physicians, and we're going to try and help you as best we can.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Dr. Adams. Kara Adams is here with us. Hey, Dr. Adams, and I saw you earlier today. Love that pink hat, girl. Thank you so very much. Want to also say hello to Shar Williams, who is here with us too. Well, to the guy who he's a great art connoisseur and so many other things. That's our very own Joe Harrington. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Nikki, how are you? And thank you, Congressman Davis, for providing this platform for us. By way of my professional career, I worked in a lot of fields, a little bit in behavioral and mental health. I worked in education, primarily in public health and healthcare, worked at 3 different hospitals. retired in 2017 from the Illinois Department of Public Health, where I was the regional health officer for Cook County and administrative law judge. And for some reason today, I'm feeling, in the words of my dear late and departed friend Salim An-Nur, I'm feeling blessed and highly favored, and I hope all of you are feeling the same. And so I want to extend blessings to everybody who's listening.
Outstanding, and thank you. I want to say hey to Nicole Johnson and also to Miss Murray, who is here with us just as well. Well, to the man who makes this possible for us each and every Monday night, to the one who truly teaches us that true wealth is your health. That's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman?
Well, let me just say hello to everybody. As a matter of fact, especially Dr. Elizabeth Lockhart. Uh, I just admire the work that Dr. Lockhart and her brother do. They're kind of a combination force, and their father was a great combination force. And they've carried on that work and just doing it so good. They got one of the best programs in the whole city dealing with veterans. And of course, many of the veterans are male, and we're talking about male health. And we're leading into Father's Day. And a lot of the conversations that I've been listening to in the last 2, 3 weeks have been what's going on with the male population, and especially what's going on with African American males. I do want to give a little shout out to the Chicago public school system. I had the good fortune to talk about the fact that 23 students had perfect scores at Whitney Young, and I wanted to congratulate all of them on the ACT.
Mhm.
But then somebody called me from Lane Tech and say, well, why is Whitney Young getting all this play? We had just as many. If we had 24 who, who had perfect scores. And I said, well, it means that the Chicago public schools are doing a great job of preparing. And then this morning, when I turned on my radio, Rufus was interviewing Dr. Blondine Davis out in South Suburban Cook County, who has one of these top flight schools that she has put together and generated a tremendous amount of not only enthusiasm, but serious accomplishment and achievement. So I want to congratulate all of our academicians. This is the time when people are graduating from everything from kindergarten to graduate school. And it's a great time of the year because people can look back. But what I loved about the suburban experience in South Suburbia is that they were celebrating their freshmen who were going to be graduating in 4 years, and they're getting them ready to go to college. Not that everybody got to go to college, because some of us do this vocational stuff. I learned something about electricity when I was in high school. My 4-H club project was putting in a four-way switch because we were just getting electricity where I lived. We didn't have it before. REA was being passed, the Rural Electrification Act. And so electricity kind of lit up the whole whole community because we didn't have it before. So there are a lot of good things going on. A lot of great things are happening. Thanks to everybody. And let's get it on.
Well, is that our Dr. P? You know that that internist, infectious disease specialist that's a doctor by day and a DJ by night. Is that you?
Hey, Nikki, happy to be a part of this panel. Thankful for you and the congressman for creating this platform. I'm looking forward to sharing with the community.
Outstanding. I want to say hey to Sister Bonnie, who is here with us. She says hello to everyone. Well, as we promised, it's the month of June. It is Men's Health Month. Want to make sure that you gather your men or gather your uncles, brothers, nephews, sons, and let's educate them about how to stay healthy. Also, want to remind everyone of the Congressman's Father's Day initiative on the 21st. There's still availability for vendors to come and vend that day in front of the office and come and be a part of those great resources. More to come, and I will repost that flyer once again so you can have that information. Well, Dr. Miller,
All
take it
right.
away.
So, okay. Well, we have had multiple conversations regarding men health and the not and medical and health conditions that have been adversely affecting especially Black males in our communities. And so tonight, I was asked to lead the conversation, and so we want to be able to have the conversation go in a way that, in addition to raising the to looking at the questions, that we come up with some possible solutions, some things that we can do. I mean, we oftentimes spin our wheels talking about what we're gonna do, and 2 or 3 years later, we're still talking and sitting in the same spot. So I think we need to begin to look at some solutions to doing some of these things and being looking at it in a realistic and an honest way, and putting the cards on the table. I was reading an article a couple of days ago, and it was talking about improving the health of African American in the U.S. Says it's an overdue opportunity for social justice, and that's the kind of when I really looked at it and then I started thinking about it. It's when we want to start talking about our health and talking about what you know should be like a right, a birthright for everybody to have all the things that should be provided for them in terms of things that's going to make them a good citizen, a good person, a healthy person, a productive person. But then when we talk about uh, the problem of justice being involved, then come a really ugly wrench in this monkey wrench in this situation, because now we're talking about we talk about the food, we talk about the getting health care, we talk about prevention, but now we also got to look at there's some other things that we must be honest about and look at it and see how it affects our health and figure out what it is that we can do to address these things. And so we're going to look at this, and I'm going to really ask my panel to really work with me tonight, as I'm going to be throwing some questions around because we need to begin to answer some questions. And the first question that I have is this: how does food insecurity impact health disparity among Black men? How does insecurity impact health among Black men?
Well, if you like, I'll start with that if you wish me to, and others will certainly contribute. But I think food insecurity, meaning that people are not certain about where meals are going to come from. But it's not just about meals, it's the quality of those meals. It's the frequency of those meals. It's the availability at a cost for those meals. There are a number of things that impact the ability of people to buy the kinds of foods they should be eating. But even as you mentioned in your beginning, it also is that we've got to eat the right foods. It's one thing, but you still got to eat it no matter when that happens. And we have to look at look at the kinds of things that we're eating. And I'm not trying to blame the victims. I'm just trying to say that there's some things that there's a couple ways you have to look at this. There's stuff that's external and then there's stuff that's internal. And the internal stuff, what goes on in your house and things of that nature. Um, I grew up in a family of 10 kids and, people cooked every day. We didn't go out for fast foods, didn't do a number of things like I'm sure like some of my colleagues on this panel. But one of the things that we do need to do from a food point of view is making sure that foods that are the right foods for us to eat and things for us to drink are made available at prices and then at availabilities that make it easy for people to take advantage of it. So with that, I'll stop there as my introductory remarks, and then hear from other esteemed colleagues.
Anyone else want to address that question?
Yeah, I'll chime in, and Dr. Mason opens the door to point out the fact that um, you can be eating 3 meals a day, maybe even 4 meals or as regularly as you do. But if you're not eating the right foods, to put another context to what Dr. Mason said, you're malnourished.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're malnourished, I mean, that's going to affect a lot of the things that you do. I mean, it could affect your thinking and your ability to process information. You might feel healthy, but you are actually not healthy because you're not getting giving the body the nutrients it needs to fuel itself to be optimally healthy. So if and I think that one of the things, and Dr. Mason actually did this when he was at Cook County Department of Public Health, and I recall he talked to me about it. He did a food recognition study, and so it's an interesting question when you get back to this issue, uh, and 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 so I don't know if people today really know what food is. When I'm talking about food in the sense of what you should be eating, because most of what we see in terms of commercials are pre-prepared food,
Mm-hmm.
and you're encouraged to eat out and eat things that may make you feel full, but it may not make you healthy in the long run. And so that's why we've seen this epidemic of obesity, which has also led to an epidemic of other things like diabetes, chronic kidney disease itself.
Mm-hmm.
So again, not eating a proper diet, not having access to healthy food contributes a lot to a person's health and well-being, and also to what I'm talking about, their cognitive ability. They probably have some problems and maybe thinking clearly or reasoning. And that might be one of the underlying problems a lot of people have when they make these bad judgments. And one that comes to mind right away is this young man who was walking, the police caught him with a fake gun. There's a lot of controversy about a fake gun because I heard on the news this morning it wasn't even really a real rifle.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad judgment. And there may be some things that play into making judgments bad like that, just in terms of food and dietary intake. So I'll stop and maybe
Well,
somebody
let
else
me
might.
ask Joe, do we have the time to eat the right foods? I mean, everybody's pretty busy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, wake up in the morning, you're running, you're rushing, you're trying to get to where you're going. We weren't fortunate as Dr. Mason. We didn't have 10 brothers and sisters. I only had 9. But we cooked, and we all had chores, and everybody had to do something. And somehow or another, whenever my time came to cook, there was always somebody willing to swap. And they said, look, why don't you do something else? And I'll take your turn. But this cooking business, do you have to cook in order to eat the right food? Can you eat it some other way with all
Well,
the busy stuff?
yeah, I'm going to defer because Dr. Mason can probably give a better answer than I do. But there's some things that you don't have to cook. There are a lot of fruits you don't have to cook to eat. mean, you don't have to cook an apple to eat an apple. You don't have to cook grapes to eat grapes. You don't have to cook oranges to eat oranges. You don't have to cook a banana to eat a banana. So what we're talking about, things that you don't really have to cook to eat that will help you moving forward. But Dr. Mason, since this is his passion and he's made this a big part of his life, I'll let him maybe say something about that.
Well, the one thing that we don't do is eat enough food with fiber.
Right.
And if it walks, hops, crawls, swims, got eyes, a mom and a daddy, it has no fiber. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. The other thing is, and because if you don't have enough fiber, fiber is important for digestion. Fiber is important along with water for controlling things like constipation. It's important for diabetic control. It's important for a number of things. I'm not trying to, and we can talk about that more as we go, but the idea is that we have had our food so commercialized and it is advertised in such a way that makes it, and it's been segregated by age, by kinds of interest. And so a lot of this is because a lot of it's just not there. The other part is we're not cooking. You know, Congressman made a point about that earlier about cooking. Well, you know, cooking was not a real big problem because I was one of 10 kids, and there was always a pot on our stove, a pot of beans, a pot of greens, a pot of something, and vegetables all the time of varying types. And there were meats, but they were used sparingly because meat cost more money. So it was hard for us to deal with that. And unfortunately, what we've done now with agriculture and things of that nature is switched it and made it so that some of these not so good foods for us are cheaper than the better ones.
Yeah.
And we have a big problem because we're spending tens of millions of dollars every year on constipation.
Mm.
And constipation, and I'll let my other internal medicine colleagues also comment, but constipation is a dietary disease. If you're not getting enough fiber, and if all you eat either walks, hops, crawls, swims, got eyes, and mom and a daddy, you're not eating any fiber. Fiber only comes from things that come out of the ground, and you need the fiber and the water in order to give you the kind of bowel movements for the proper elimination of waste materials from your body. Those things, and in addition to other choices we make us more, and I'll leave my internal medicine colleagues to talk more about that. But why are we so hypertensive? Why are we, especially Black men, have so much high blood pressure? Why are we having so much diabetes? Why are we suffering more from the complications of these things like amputations and blindness and limb loss than our white counterparts? I'll stop right there because I'll get going.
You want to jump in, Dr. Pete?
Yeah, I was enjoying my colleagues. You guys with this lighting them up. I love it. But since you teed it up, I'll say this. I was thinking about your question, Dr. Miller, and so why are men either not living to their full health potential and or dying earlier than they should as a result of food insecurity or the lack of quality foods that they're consuming? And then what struck me was this idea of everything that my colleagues just said, but also even the stress that happens as a result of being a Black man. And what does that do in terms of our ability to make decisions, right? Not just decisions around rather to go to this job or that job, but also in terms of the foods that we want to consume. This idea of having our brains be underneath this constant pressure and stress, that we seek foods that want to increase our serotonin levels or the dopamine. Those are feel good hormones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are high sugary, high salt content foods, right? And we knew that from back in the day when we were underneath the whip and during slavery, that we needed those foods to get us through it the day, right? Physically, but also mentally. Um, and I wonder if we're not even in tune as Black men, we're not in tune. We've been underneath this pressure so long, we don't even know when we're stressed. And so, this idea of consuming foods, unbeknownst to us, is a way to treat or to raise those serotonin levels to make us feel good, only to actually cause inflammation to cells. And over time, and we develop sort of what Dr. Mason would call and Dr. Hampton would call like insulin resistance, right? Where the sugar levels are just so high that now the cells don't even respond anymore. And so I'm seeing more and more young guys coming in with a severe hypertension.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about 190s, over 110, 170 over 100, young guys, and also pre-diabetics. Where is this coming from? It's coming this constant stress. It's like cortisol overload. Those are stress hormones that's usually used to protect us, right? If you're in a jungle and a rhinoceros comes running at you, you need those cortisol levels to get out of your way, right? But what if that cortisol level is elevated as a result of not having a job, not being able to provide for your family, um, not being able to clearly see what direction you need to go in to be a productive person in your family and community? Those cortisol levels are still high. That's the same rhinoceros. Only thing, that bad boy just never stops coming. Okay, so I'm thinking about the foods that we consume as Black men on a regular basis to help us to feel good. And if we're not careful, but guess what? That same feel good, we'll substitute it for alcohol, we'll substitute it for drugs. And the only thing is, when our family members see us consuming alcohol and drugs all the time, they're gonna step up and say something. But a big old pot of of Cheetos, nobody says nothing. No, it's like that's the same thing. When you're not eating that rice for no reason at all, he's trying to feel good. He's trying to self-medicate. So I'm just thinking about our mental health. I'm thinking about how the foods that we consume is basically a result of the stress and pressure that it means to be a Black man in America.
Yeah,
Pete,
I
go
want to
ahead.
jump in real quick because I looked up the definition of food insecurity quickly because I was wondering what that really means. What does food insecurity mean? And it means limited or uncertain access to adequate food. It get back to this issue. What is food? What do
Mhm.
people think is food? If you think you're running out and you're getting something and you feel full because you eat a bag of Cheetos or Flaming Hots or something like that. Now you feel full and you feel satisfied. Have you really eaten any food? Have you really eaten something that's going to help you to, it may help you gain weight. It may, in some respect, contribute to the erratic behavior we're seeing.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that, but I can imagine that people that are not eating a healthy diet on a regular basis may be more prone to make rash and irrational decisions.
Yeah.
Just like the brother I described, doing something stupid, and I don't know what compelled him to do something stupid, but we have a lot of people that are exhibiting behavior that really is not consistent with what we expect.
I don't know about, haven't really read a lot about what other kinds of things do in terms of our brain and mental functions. But I do know that glucose, being too high, being too low, can cause a behavior that is similar to being intoxicated. And so when you're talking about the food, it's causing people behavior to be in such a way that it's no longer, it's not reasonable for the situation that they're in. So if glucose could do that, I know that there are probably other things in the food, in the food line that can also affect that when it's not in the right level that we should be taking. And I think that, the question that Dr. Mason keep and you too, Joe, keep raising is, what is food? And how do we teach people? Food is not just something to eat. We used to talk a lot about something to eat when it was time to eat. We want something to eat as opposed to asking for a meal. I want something to eat. Well, food is not just something to eat, because you can eat a lot of things. Some of them will kill you. But food is something that you eat that has a beneficial effect for your body and your mental condition and the whole bit. So, when I started talking today, I said I wanted to talk about some things and ask some questions, but during the process also, we need to come up with some solutions. What can we do as a community, as a society, as a city, as a state? What can we do to begin to teach people if they don't know? Our people perish because of lack of knowledge. Um, if we don't give them that knowledge and they don't have that knowledge, then they're going to still be in a situation where they cannot benefit from the effect of having that kind of knowledge. So how do we do this? How do we, what do we do? I mean, when I go back and I look back at historically speaking, in at the time when Black people were, early in this country, and there were no schools to formally teach Black people to read, to write, to do those things, but somehow we came up with means. We used other facilities. The church became our first schoolhouses. So I'm just saying, here's a condition here that is just as bad as illiteracy, because it's killing people. And when we look at Black men, in that article that I was talking about, it says that Black men health is the poorest of health of all other groups. And when you look at the measures, I mean, we're dying at an earlier age. Our ability to live with some of these conditions is less than others. I mean, we're getting prostate cancer, and on a percentage rate, we're dying at a higher rate than other groups. And some of that is due to maybe later detection. It's due to inadequate treatment that people are getting. So I'm just saying, we need to have some. It's good to tell people that that you're not eating well and you need to change that. But how do we really go about establishing means to get this information to the people that need this in the community? We need to have a Congressman Davis a few years ago, and I think he maybe last year brought together a group and was talking about just Black men education. This is something that's needed probably on a more frequent basis. We all know that the effect of people overeating and eating wrong, but we have to get that information. So, what kind of suggestions do you guys have in terms of how we can go about really getting the information to the people, teaching the people what they need to know in order that they can do better?
So, go ahead, Terry.
No, I was just going to say this. Many of us, for some of us, it's not a function of lack of knowledge. It's a lack of will. And what's happened is the food industry has so manipulated the foods that we're addicted to these things. And I'll leave Dr. Thomas to talk about it. And I'll give you one example. Sugar. Mm-hmm. And we have sugar concentrated in a substance called high fructose corn syrup. And Dr. Robert Lustig, who treats morbidly obese children, has shown that the high fructose corn syrup stimulates the same places in the brain as does cocaine. So some of this, and then we can't also not leave out the profit situation. There's a lot of money in sickness. There's a lot. And I'm going to say this, we as physicians, and I'll say this for myself, I learned that I was being trained to be a arbiter of the pharmaceutical companies and the device manufacturers. And I'll just give you one quick one. We talked about erectile dysfunction. And I'm going to say this: erectile dysfunction, heart disease, strokes are all food-borne illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
They're food-borne illnesses. It's not just about, you're not genetically born to have a stroke or something like that, but it's the food-borne illnesses. And these illnesses, through the success of marketing and things of that nature, we look at, and I'll mention one other, and I'll stop here. But kidney disease. Kidney disease is also a foodborne illness, because oftentimes people who have kidney disease also have and have been dealing with hypertension.
Yeah.
And the hypertension, and I'll leave that for my internal medicine. Pete may chime in more on that. And I think, Pete, you're right. Those things that you mentioned are there, but we also got these other things that were there. And they're going to be there because of the tremendous amount of profit. There's a lot of money in managing disease, a lot. And I was in that business for a while in terms of particularly looking at erectile dysfunction. But when I told the guys that erectile dysfunction and a stroke and a heart attack are all the same disease, different organs, but all the same disease, all caused by the same things. And so that was one way for us to begin to think about how we can change some of this stuff. And I'll stop right there.
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Dr. Mason said is the food industry has spent years learning how to get your attention, whether it's in a flashy ad, whether it's in flashy packaging, whether it's a celebrity endorsement. So they know how to get your attention and get you to buy their product. And the sadder part about this is the insurance industry is not insuring the healthy crops. They're insuring the crops that produce high fructose corn syrup. So we have less opportunity to get healthy foods in virtually any part of our society. So I think to answer Dr. Miller's questions is we have to understand what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a rigged system. And we have to understand that, well, it'd be nice if somebody did something about it, but I don't think that's likely to happen in the next 4 years. We're going to have to do something about it. And kind of like Dr. Mason's approach, you got to grow your own.
Yeah.
The best way to have access to it is to grow it yourself, if you can. Or to find a community that has access to land, where as a community, the community can grow its own.
So Doug is saying that we got a rigged system. And
The
system is rigged against us being healthy. And and it's rigged because somebody is concerned about making more money. And if you chase the dollar, you usually find the problems most of the time with most of these situations where there's harm being done. Usually it's because somebody is, it's not just that people are doing this for fun, but they're doing it for the money.
I'd be willing to bet that you can get a pizza cheaper than you can get a bag of apples.
Yeah.
And that's salty, crunchy food that they know you want to have another piece. You're not going to stop at just one.
Yeah. So we have a rigged system that somebody is making money from, yet and still, people are dying at a higher rate than they should be, at a younger age than they should be. So we still gotta, we can't just say, well, they outnumbered me, they got more weapons than I got, so I gotta just give in. We still gotta fight the fight here. We still gotta help folks to overcome these issues that they are dealing with, because obviously many don't have the knowledge, or they don't have the resources, or they have been trained to do what the system has want them to do. They want them to eat what they are selling because that's how they make money. So the question is how do we surround this monster that is continuing to kill people and to make people sick, even though it's beneficial to some people. Most of us are not benefiting from it.
Well, whose responsibility is it? I mean, the idea that the people will know the idea that people will learn what to do in terms of protecting and promoting the best self-interest. And so if people would know certain things, I was joking with myself a moment ago in terms of saying, if a lot of the people that I know, males, if they knew that they could just eat their way out of erectile dysfunction, that they'd probably do it. Since that's a big issue with them.
Yeah.
That's a big concern. But since they've never learned that, that does not permeate their being in terms of thinking. If I changed my eating habits, maybe this would work as well as anything else that I could possibly do. And so whose responsibility is to make sure or try and make sure that people know what they can and should do.
I'm going to take a stab at it and approach it differently. I think it's a shared responsibility. And I think what we're trying to do tonight is just provide some context for why things are the way they are. We can't change things, but individually and then collectively, if we work together, we can probably change things. But it's going to take time. We didn't arrive at this point all of a sudden. And this, for some of us, is not an aha moment, particularly Dr. Mason. Dr. Mason's been talking about this stuff for like 30 or 40 years. So it's nothing new. And what that also means that subsequent generations, that this is the way they've grown up. This is what they know. They don't know anything different. More meals now are eaten away from home than at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I see people going through a drive-through, and I see people in the back seat starting to eat. They just came out, and people eating in the back of their cars. So this is a major shift and a major societal change. So it's going to take time. But I think what we're trying to do tonight is to shed some light on what's happening. But this didn't happen all of a sudden, and it's not going to stop all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take some shared responsibility, because I don't want to put all the burden on the individual, because there's not a lot that the individual can do, particularly if the individual feels that they don't have a problem, that we are the problem because we're telling them they have a problem. So we probably need to come up with some models and some other ways to do this. And part of that may be just exposing people to some of these foods and trying to get them to take a chance and do it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things, one of the things that we when we talk about where did the problem start? I mean, I remember, I think last week we were talking about, what makes a healthy male, and so when Dr. Mason is talking about those men with ED, well, these are men by the time that they get ED, they got a lot of disease. The process is they're way behind the eight ball at that point. We need to be talking to people that before they get ED. We need to be talking to young folks about eating before they get heart disease, because once you got the disease, you have that. Not that that changing your diet and all these things still would be appropriate, but the effect that you're going to have is not going to be be as effective as if you had did the same thing, when you were younger. And so we really need to be teaching our children a better. So who's responsible for the children? We look at it, we say the parents. But if the parents know or don't know, or they're doing the best they can with the circumstance that they're in, we have to figure that out and figure out how we can interact with them in a way that can help. Because again, we talk about prevention, but we need to know where can we prevent this problem at. And I think you got to start early, late is as we know about cancer, you can if you intervene late, the outcome is not going to be as good as if you intervene early in the disease process. Pete, you got something to say, Pete?
No, I agree with you. I think the idea is to implement strategies as early as possible, and obviously as part of the healthcare workforce, I think it's important that we, go back to basics in terms of not just being in these clinics, but getting out into the community. Going back to the churches, getting out, talking to past and them, and telling them, listen, the food is the source of a lot of these diseases, and especially high fructose corn syrup. A lot of our churches are used to serving food that is too high in sugar, too high in salt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this whole idea, we're so used to food representing some sort of emotional response to it. And I think we got to get away from that and recognize it's just fuel. And I tell my patients that all the time, it's just fuel for your body to do what it was meant to do. So this whole emotional thing, we got to, because why? There's so much trauma that we've been a part of. That food was a part of a way for us to heal, right? But in the process of healing, that same food source that will allow us to sit around the table and to support each other and love on each other has become part of the disease process. And so I think we got to go back to the basics, get into the community, get into our churches, and talking about the consumption of nutritionally dense whole foods. And that's a term that I mention to my patients all the time. And right after I say that, I start talking about what they are: eggplants, cucumbers, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale. I'm going down this. So don't get confused about what I mean. It's not complicated. Just, and all that with a little bit of olive oil on top of that stove. Guess what? You got a great meal. And you opening up all those arteries to the arteries that supply the heart, arteries that supply the brain, the kidneys, and of course, as men want to, the arteries that supply other areas as well.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that we do have to begin to look at, we know that the supplier of food are not going to change it. They don't have an incentive, and it would be somewhat of a disincentive for them to really start selling things that are less of the things that hurt people, and sell them things that's going to help people be healthier. So we know that, and so therefore we have to say, well, you know, where are we in this, and where can we find partners that can work with us? And Pete talked about getting into the faith-based situation in the churches, and I think that I mean, a lot of things in the Black community has been done in the churches or started in the churches, and I think so. That's one area. And I'm gonna tell you another area that people, for some reason, people listen to barbers. Back in the day when there were bars, people listened to the bartenders, barbers, bartenders, and preachers. People listen to them, and so they come with an ear to listen. So we have to make certain that that information is shared, and that we are there in these spots, in these areas, that we can help to get that information shared with the people that need to know, and therefore they can do better. You can't do better if you don't know. You can't do what you don't know. You're only gonna do what you know. And if you've been taught to do a thing a certain way, that's how you're gonna do it. And so if our children have been taught to eat certain things, that's what they're gonna eat. I mean, how many times do we see our kids as he said, running to the fast food place? That's where most of them eat their meals. And McDonald's or Burger King, as long as, I mean, if there's one around, or they go into the regular stores and get some chips and all that other hot stuff in a sugar pop. So If they don't know that this is not the appropriate thing, then they'll continue to do that. I mean, it tastes good, but it's not nutritionally dense, and it's not supplying them with the things that their body needs, and so they're actually getting malnourished. And so we talk about their behavior. Maybe the behavior is due to malnourishing. Kids that don't have the things that their body needs and their mind need in order for them to make better decisions and to think, have the thought process to think things through in a different way.
Well, doctor, we've got to remember there's no value proposition on health.
Mm-mm.
Nobody makes money on healthy people. You make money on managing sick people. There's a book by Mr. Moynihan called Selling Sickness.
Mm.
And it's all about making sure that, and he said, I want to be like Wrigley. I want everybody taking a pill. And these are people with the business prowess to begin to do this kind of thing. And we've got to move from blaming the person, because it's the individual is a pawn in this.
Yeah.
They're not, yes, they're eating it, but they're a pawn in it. And we've done a number of things. I mean, we've done things when I was at county where we created bags of food when we were growing food to have specific for diabetics and specific for so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, to what Dr. Thomas has said, people, it doesn't mean anything until we get the people decide to do it. And that decision has a lot of things that gets in their way. Just ADLs, activities of daily life, get in the way of a lot of things that we talk about. But I grew up in a big family. We had a big pot of something on our stove every day, some bento beans, some lima beans. We don't see that as much anymore. The idea that it costs too much money to eat right has been permeated and pushed out there only because we don't really want to show people necessarily how they could eat better a lot cheaper. But that's not what's happening. And the industry itself spends a lot of money in advertising on every single kind of media on making sure that we eat the wrong things. I mean, we don't even have cartoons anymore like Popeye that would you at least take some spinach and eat it, and was instrumental. But now if you look at all of the grocery stores and where the foods are for children and the colors that they use, all of that being scientifically engineered to lure those children to those areas of the store where those foods and those cartoon characters are. That is, there's studies that shown, and Dr. Lott, I'd implore you all to look at Bob Lustig, Dr. Robert Lustig. He's in California, and he deals with morbidly obese children. That's his specialty. And so there's some things out there. The question is, do we have the fortitude to try and push some of this, try and deal with this, or realize that you're not, it's a David and Goliath sort of story? Because there's a lot of, it's not that we don't know what to do. We just have too many impediments to us doing it. And I'd lastly say that I was making a point the other day with somebody. We were talking about basketball, and used to ask the question, why is it that so many basketball players, especially the younger ones, like the young one that used to play for the Bulls, his first name begins with a D. Is it Derek or something like that?
Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was in fact, I almost wanted to go to Michael and ask me to help do this study. But wanted to ask, you look at Derrick Rose was always out with something, and with some kind of injury. But if you looked at Michael and you looked at some of these other brothers who grew up probably eating pinto beans and all the other stuff, they weren't nearly as injured as some of these younger guys are. And we wanted to actually propose a study, and still do, from one point of view. But there's just no incentive for us in our system to um, to reward people for doing the right things
Well,
with food.
Terry, here's the thing. My next question from that is this: it seemed like there's no incentive. There's no monetary incentive, but there's an incentive that's greater than money, and that's called life, quality life, which you can't really purchase once you have already messed up the thing. Once your body has been diseased and you had strokes and heart attack, money can't fix that and put it back together the way that it was before. So there is incentive. Maybe somehow we don't highlight those incentives. I don't think anybody want to be sick. Anybody want to have a stroke. I think that if a person had $1 billion and they had an option, especially if they'd had the stroke, that if you want to, would you give this $1 billion to get well again? I think they'd give it up. I think they
Yeah,
would.
but
I think
people usually come to that conclusion when they're older and they're sick. Young people don't think like that.
young people don't.
They're living their lives pretty much day to day. So it's hard to get them to change because, uh, and again, one of the things you pointed out, I mean, there are no symptoms for any disease in its earliest, most manageable state.
Right.
So most people are probably at a state of disease and don't even know it. And they're enjoying their lives. They're eating what they want, they're drinking what they want, they're doing what they want. I think what we're trying to say is maybe there's another way, and hopefully some people will hear that. I mean, but I would say that when I was growing up, if somebody, and I was like 16 or 17 years old, I wouldn't be paying any attention to this because I'd be thinking about the next thing and what I'm going to do. And that's to say that a word I think that's overused is we. We're talking to ourselves. So we're preaching to the choir. But there are some people out there, this is falling on deaf ears because they hear what we're saying and they say, well, yeah, that makes sense. But are they ready to do that? Are they ready to make a change? Is this where they are in their lives? So I think it's a robust discussion, but I don't want to end this discussion with people think they're either the victim or they have no control. People have immense power to do things, and everybody has the power to change and to change their lives. So I want to encourage people, if anything we said makes sense to you, consider making a change and do something. You can start today. And maybe in 20 years report back to us. Maybe you'll be 50, maybe you'll be 60, maybe you'll be 70. You say, well, I took that advice and I'm okay. And I'm here to tell other people the same thing.
And some people will. And I
Mhm.
think the whole idea is that ecologically, things sort of bear themselves out. I used to like to listen to the gentleman who was pastor of the church that I attended, a fellow named Charlie Murray. And oftentimes, after he got through preaching, he would open the doors of the church. And when he finished and nobody joined, he would say, I have discharged of my duty. And if Israel never repents, Jacob won't lose his reward. And so,
Yeah.
as long as there are individuals spreading the word, like, we live in a democracy, but millions of people don't vote. But we keep trying to convince them that maybe they ought to. But every year, every election, there are millions of people who don't vote. And there are other people expressing the position that voting is the greatest thing in the world that you can do. and others are spending millions of dollars trying to convince people to vote, and yet there's still millions who don't and won't, but we keep trying.
Well, that was simply outstanding. To our community who has been commenting, we are so sorry. We apologize. We see all of your comments, and I promise that we're going to get to your questions that you left on next week. That will be at the top of the hour. But I do want to acknowledge you for making sure that you were here and wanting to be a part of the conversation. I want to say hey to Sandell Scott, who is here. She says hello. Robert Douglas, well, I want to thank you. You've been commenting and sending questions. We're going to grab those questions next week. Nellie Purnell is here, and she says, good evening. Dorothy Murphy is here, and she says hello and good evening. Robert Douglas again, I love that statement. Is it racism or it's racism? Even Dr. Pete on the panel, but had to put some stuff in here. No money in a cure. I know that's right. Also, Audrey J. Cox is here. She says, late, but good evening to everyone. Trish McKinner is here from Loretta Hospital, and she is saying hello. And of course, Linda Johnson is saying that is true. This has been an outstanding, robust conversation. And once again, on next Monday, what will we be talking about? Men's health, because it is June. It is June, and it is Men's Health Month. And just want to go around that great table and ask the question of until next Monday, starting with Doug. Doug, what do you want to leave us with until next Monday?
I'm a big fan of farmers markets. Farmers markets occur in different parts of your community. Farmers bring in their food and they sell it. I like them because I like to support my local farmers. Generally, the quality of the produce is better than I get in the big box stores, and they can teach you what's a good selection, what's a good cucumber, what's a good beet, what's a good head of lettuce. So if your local community doesn't have a grocery store or has nothing but fast foods, look online, look in the newspaper, see where the farmers markets are, and give them a try.
Outstanding, and thank you. Well, Dr. Mason, you're until next Monday.
I just want to let people know that this stuff is real. I was a guy that used to eat a steak every day and chase it with pizza. And that ended me up in the intensive care.
That's a cocktail there.
No, I'm just telling you, it ended up, and I'm telling you, this is what happened to me. I ended up having to have 3 stents put in my heart because of that eating. This is real, people. It is not something that happens to other people. It happened to me because I was doing the very thing that I was, well, now I tell people don't do, but this is real and it can happen to you. And I was fortunate enough that my cardiologist happened to be in the hospital and I got in right away. You might not be as fortunate. And I don't want you to even have to go there, but understand what you're eating can kill you.
Well, Doug said farmers markets, and Dr. Terry Mason said this is real. What you eat can kill you. Well, Pete, what's your until next Monday?
Until next Monday, I just want our audience to recognize, to take a pause, recognize how they're feeling, and not to immediately respond to emotional feelings to choose what they're going to consume. And I think that's a big issue, is that we're underneath so much stress and pressure that we want to consume foods that's going to immediately make us feel good. And those are almost in every situation the worst possible decision you can make. So don't forget to consume nutritionally dense whole foods as much as you possibly can and can afford.
Well, Dr. Pete says consume whole foods. Terry Mason says, that's Dr. Mason, this is real. What you eat can kill you. Doug says he is an advocate for the farmers market. Well, Joe, you're until next Monday.
Well, I'm going to take an approach and say each of us is more powerful than we realize. And if anything we said made sense tonight, you have the ability to change. You can change your life for the good moving forward. So I hope you take in what we said but exercise your own power and make yourself better and lead a better life.
Outstanding, Joe, and thank you so much. So we got the farmers market. We have This Is Real, What You Can Eat Can Kill You. We also have consuming whole foods, and you have the ability to change. Well, Dr. Miller, you're until next Monday.
My until next Monday is, do you love you? If you love you, then be good and be kind to yourself. And the best way for you to be kind to yourself is to avoid and to stop those things that are going to injure you. Certain foods are going to cause you to have cardiovascular disease, the number one killer of people in this country, maybe in the world. So be careful and take care of yourself, love yourself, and give yourself what you need.
Outstanding, simply outstanding. To those of you who were sending us notices on Instagram asking about Dr. Maya, she was having a ton of technical difficulties and could not get in tonight, but she will repair that and be ready for you guys on next Monday. For those of you who sent inboxes asking where was Pastor Cy, he called off a little early and said he couldn't be here, but he's going to be excited to be back with us on next Monday. And he also said his until next Monday is to love yourself. So I love the fact that that's just what came out of Dr. Miller's mouth. Just want to remind you of a few announcements from our office. August 16th, that's August 16th, that's Saturday, August 16th, is our back to school picnic parade, World Health Day, and Technology in the Park. So prepare, get your floats together, get your marching bands together, come out and be a great part of what we do every year, the back to school picnic parade, World Health Day, and Technology in the Park. We will see you there. That's Saturday, August 16th. And once again, do not forget our Father's Day initiative, Saturday, June 21st. Don't forget our Father's Day initiative. And then remember to love your fathers every day, but give them a special hug on Father's Day. I got a ton of information, notices that say we always throw the fathers under the bus. They don't want any more ties. So don't buy any more ties for Father's Day. Give them some great, great gifts. Well, Congressman, as always, take us home.
Well, I think I'll just remind us, even though we didn't talk about it, but the budget that the Senate is still wrestling with, if they pass what the House passed, there are 224,486 people in the 7th Congressional District who depend on Medicaid to make health care affordable. There are 100,791 people who depend on Medicare to make care affordable. There are 1,463 people who rely on nursing homes for care every day. And so the proposed budget cuts would cost the 7th District $2.35 billion over the next 10 years. And so while there are things that we can do individually, there are also things that we have to do collectively to try and make sure that the resources are available to try and take care of these people who won't eat right, who are not going to take care of their health. And we have to have doctors and hospitals and nursing homes and programs to try and take care of them. So until next Monday, stay on the case. Thanks, and we'll see you then. All right.